Mm. Hello, Ethan. What's up?
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I missed your entire show at this point, but I'm sure I missed out on great stuff.
Yeah, I always put on a great show, Kristen. So, how you doing this evening?
I'm good. I had a lot of people tell me I can't believe that you're going on his show. I didn't realize that you were the most notorious guy on the internet.
I don't know about the most notorious, but one of them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Ethan, you said you wanted to say some things to me about, I think, our little misunderstanding.
Did I want to say something to you, or did you want to say something to me?
Well, I think that I think that my joking about the Ricada interview, I think it was maybe taken to be a little more serious than it was. But I just wanted to find out, like, do you really think it's crazy that people would think that there was like that you were, messed up in that interview? Like, did you feel like that came across fine?
I wouldn't say it's my A game. I was a little tired and traveled across the country. I live in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula, and there was a hurricane coming, so I flew to Mexico City, where which I'm also quite familiar with. The internet wasn't really working that great, so I think the lag kind of contributed to some of the imbalance there, actually.
Well, I did see that. I did see that. But, I'm not sure why, because everybody on that stream, or I would say like half the people on the in the chat room, were talking about how you seemed really off. So I'm not sure how like my 3 or 4 minute comment on my own stream that was worthy of so much attention. So I
Well,
guess
you
I
said
really
I was
pissed
on
you off with that.
heroin. Y-
Well,
What do
you
you
did
know
seem
about
pretty
heroin,
molested.
by the way? I heard you talking about drug habits and where to score fentanyl and stuff earlier. What do you know about drugs?
Yeah. If you want to come over, we can go a few streets down to the ghetto.
Yeah, do you live close to the ghetto?
I do actually.
But you have a PhD in what, English literature? I thought.
I mean, I do. Have you read about the messed up lives of all the great writers in history?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of that. But how did you go from PhD in English literature to living in the ghetto?
Uh, so I'm gonna tell you, like, seriously, something that I've not talked about really yet on my channel, but the school that I was teaching at, that I taught at for 7 years, and got glowing reviews as a professor, and people like even like my department chair. She told me, "Oh, my son loves your class." But they got sued for by a number of black students for racial discrimination, they claimed, and it was a complete bullshit money grab, the lawsuits. But people got freaked out, and my English department particularly was sued. And so they got freaked out and they looked for ways that they could let go of any non-permanent, non-tenured people and
So wait.
hire minorities.
So you've accused me of being a racist online, if I'm not mistaken. So you're telling me that you got fired as part of a allegedly racist English literature department? Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah, that's basically right. And I've spoken out a lot against DEI and things like that. But I think what I said is that you had some attitudes about certain races that I did not necessarily agree with.
Which racist would that be?
Well, I mean, I think that the one that comes up the most is this one. I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I know you and Nick Fuentes, and there are a number of other people online who really feel like that who really feel like Jews are a big problem. And I don't understand. I get that, if you don't agree with what's going on in Gaza right now, but I don't get it. But,
You
you
don't
and
get what's
Kanye
going
and
on in
Nick
Gaza
Fuentes.
with the genocide and the 50,000 killed and all that?
No, I don't get though beyond that, like what your problem is when it comes, because this is something that you've been even before the recent situation in Gaza that y'all been talking about, right? Or am I wrong? This is just
No, you're
new.
not wrong. Zionist control of our foreign policy and our government, something that I talk about quite often.
Why are you not on YouTube? Have you gotten kicked off a lot?
Yeah, I did a fundraiser for St. Jude, and we raised 27,000. I'm from Memphis. St. Jude's my hometown charity,
Okay.
and the Wall Street Journal wrote a front page article about it, and there were some off-color jokes. Submitted a super chats on a different stream, and then on that stream, I didn't take part in it, but there was an impromptu debate on the Holocaust on that stream, and so YouTube banned me for that reason.
Well, that's one thing that comes up, I know, on your Wikipedia. Do you feel like your Wikipedia is, I mean,
Well,
it's not my business, but do you feel like it's accurate?
I don't have a Wikipedia actually. I have a rational wiki, and no, it's not accurate.
Yeah. Well, so that's all I know. Like, that's the thing that's kind of been baffling to me also about all this is like, I didn't even know who you were a week ago, and I saw the interview that you did with Ricada, and I mean, that was a big deal, right? I mean, I'll give you like hats off to you for scoring that because that was a really big interview.
Well, you may not know this, but Nick Ricada's been on my show about 30 or 40 times.
Yeah, somebody told me that he had been on a lot, and so, but that was a big interview, getting the first one. So I tuned into that, was watching it on another channel, and you know, I feel like it was pretty confusing to a lot of viewers, like the way that interview came off. So if you're saying that you were just tired, I mean, I don't care, right? That's fine, but I'm trying to explain to like you and some of the people who got pissed off that I was just coming at it as like it was just a joke, and there were a lot of other people joking. And then when I did that stream where I talked about a lot of other shit for like an hour and a half
I didn't watch
and
that
all
part.
kinds of topics.
Yeah, I didn't watch
Yeah,
that.
no, yeah, no, that's fine. I understand. Neither of us have watched each other's shows,
Yeah, I
but
don't know
that
who you
was,
are. I never heard of you before last week.
well, I mean, right back at you.
I mean, I'm much
But,
more famous than you, by the way.
well, I have perceived that because when you put out that video uh, challenging me to come on this show, then I had a bunch of people messaging me and a lot of people watch your show and said,
I know.
"Oh, he said this." So yeah, I will give you that. You're definitely professionally superior to me right now.
Well, definitely, yeah. What are you doing? Where are you working at now? Denny's, or what's going on with the PhD? Or?
More or less. I mean, more or less, yeah. But well, you know, I got the PhD, but it's not a Jill Biden PhD either. I'll have you know. It's
No, it
like
looked legitimate from what I read. But of course, I didn't inspect the documents. But seems like it's pretty tough.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how old you are, if you want to share that or not.
I'm
But
38 years old.
okay, so I'm a middle-aged lady. I'm older than you, even by a few years.
Really?
And I am. I know it's shocking. I have to
Well, I didn't say
regularly
it was shocking.
feed on the blood of children.
I just said I was surprised.
Oh, okay. So
Not
full on,
shocking,
not
but
full on shock.
yeah. I guess the mullet should have given it away, though. That's kind of an old school hairstyle there.
Yeah.
A little
Well,
bit 80s style. It hasn't been in fashion since like 91, maybe, something like that.
well, I want to go back to the 80s, so that's probably why. Yeah, so I don't know. To answer your question, like I feel like I am having a kind of a midlife crisis. And so
You're
I
having a
thought, well,
midlife crisis.
I think so. I do. I do.
What makes you say that?
Well, I think because, you know, when people change professions and basically go a completely different way and are not sure if they're doing what they really should be doing or if this is just a dead end. I mean, I think that's kind of a crisis, right? Or no?
Yeah, I mean, I could see how that's considered a midlife crisis. You spent, I don't know how
I
much
mean, I'm in the
money. I'm
ghetto.
sure you live in the ghetto with a PhD from North Carolina, which I'm assuming, paid a lot for or still paying on. I don't know your situation there. Personally, I have student loans, but I just refuse to pay them because I think they're bullshit. So I didn't pay for mine, but I have a degree in political science, not a PhD, just a Bachelor of Arts there. But yeah, I don't pay student loans because I think they're scams. So
Yeah. Well, you know, it's one of those things like well, they kind of suck you in a way because you actually don't, you get a lot of your tuition when you're in grad school knocked off, a lot more than you
yeah.
would think. And then they have you teaching like all of the first level classes. So a lot of people this is one of the things that suck about college is that a lot of people who spend a lot of money to send their kids there, like they don't realize that a lot of the classes are going to be taught by other people who are also in school who don't really know what's going on.
So you're telling me you got fired for being white? Is what you're telling me, and what you said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's basically what it comes down to, because there were like 6 or 7 of us that were let go, as they put it. What they said was that they were eliminating our positions because of COVID related issues, like, or we got budget problems or whatever. But then immediately they created new positions for what we had been doing, and they requested that people with a focus in race apply, and that they would be favored in the selection process. And then, yeah, a lot of those people were hired. So I don't know. It's not something that it's not something that I ever said to anybody there, because I was like, fuck it, there's nothing I can do about it. But it seemed pretty unfair.
So is
Yeah.
it outrageous to talk about racial politics? I mean, it would seem like you should care about that sort of thing.
No, not to me. It's not. And I've talked about DEI, but I think that I just don't agree with, at times, which you understand, like some of the language that you've used around this. And also, I don't
Wait,
think
which
that,
language?
well, I mean, I don't want to say the words, right? But don't you regularly use the N word? Or no?
Not
Am I wrong
regularly.
with that? No?
Soft A I use pretty regularly. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. I mean, that's just generally honest.
I've never called a black man a hard R. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I have used the hard R.
So I understand, like, you might say that's not racist, but that in my mind
If I'm
is a
calling
big
a
problem.
white person the N word with the hard R, I don't think that's racist. No.
But we're talking about black people, right? Though.
Yeah, but
Calling
I've
them.
never called a black person that.
Oh, so you're saying you've never used that word to refer to black
Never.
people? No.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, see, like I said, I haven't watched your show, and I had a number of people who, when I said I was going to come on, they said, "Oh, don't go on with him as all this stuff." And I said, I don't have time to even look into all of that or see what's true and what's not. I'm just going to go on and talk and see what happens, because I do understand that things kind of blew up with those comments that I made, that those jokes that I made. But I mean, it wasn't just me. Like, you get that, right? Like, there were a lot of people,
Well,
like, probably like,
I have a big fan club, so to speak. And my sobriety's been well known for months, and so they try to turn that into me being fucked up. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that happened.
well, I believe you, or I accept that, and it's none of my business anyway, if you were or weren't. But I kind of just felt like we're all in this realm, right? And when we go on, like, I've done videos before where I was not at my best, right? Or I smoked weed or whatever, right? Which I'm open about. And
You smoke a lot of
I
weed?
I smoke a pretty good bit.
How
Do you
much?
like weed?
I used to smoke a lot of weed. I don't smoke now, but
Yeah. So you're like totally straight, not totally
I
sober, not
smoke
even
I
California
smoke
sober?
cigarettes. My son lives in California, but no, I don't smoke weed. I smoked weed for many years though. So not to lie about it, but no, I don't smoke weed. At this
So
time, I've smoked plenty. Yeah.
So I guess, like, what I'm saying is, if when I've done streams in the past, or if I've done streams where
Frosty Toad
I was
sent
performing, we'll
$3.
say, the
Ethan is
way
a
that you were
wigger,
in the Ricada
not a
interview, and I
wignut.
understand you say there were other
Love to
reasons
the
or
white
whatever, but it's
nationalist
something that
homeless
I would not get pissed
BTW.
off if people remarked on it or made jokes about it or whatever, because I'd say, yeah, it looked pretty fucked up there. But I didn't realize it was going to get clipped, and it was going to get transformed from a joke, which it really was a joke. You seemed drunk to me, but it was a joke. And then people say, oh, Colonel Kurtz accuses,
Well, you
Ethan
said
Ralph.
it multiple times that I was on heroin. You said it once in your stream, and I think there's a super chat or two where you said it. And you said it personally to Nick Ricada, who said it was a fine interview, actually, and minus the lag, that
That's
he
good.
had a
He
good
was
time.
pleased with it. Well, that's good. He was pleased with it. I'm glad it worked out like how he wanted it to. So anyway, and
what are your thoughts on Ricada? You seem on the fence, critical. I don't know how you would describe it, but
yeah, I know that some of Ricada's fans are upset with me because of some of the critical things I might have said, but then there's a lot of my fans who are upset because they feel like I've not been hard on him enough or whatever. So what I keep saying is, it totally would make sense to me that the cops got this wrong, the testing was wrong on his daughter. It would make sense to me that he's got a bunch of busybodies in his life that freaked out because he was partying some and had this unconventional lifestyle, I guess, with Steel Toe Morning's wife. But so maybe, yeah, and I don't know, but I think it's interesting. But also, like, there's these police reports out here with all of this stuff, and a lot of people and possible child neglect, and I don't condone that, but I don't talk about my opinion on any of that when I talk about his situation, because I just really don't know. So I've just been covering developments and covering some of his streams and stuff, and that's why I was watching your interview with him. What do you think? I mean, I know you're his friend and everything, so I would assume you're supportive.
I've tried to call it down the middle, but yeah, I would say I lean more towards his side, especially with the follicle test. Seems like bullshit to me. Seems like they're using his kids to try to force a plea on the criminal side. But I've been calling it pretty much down the middle from the start. I've been one of the ones covering it the most, actually, since it all broke. And so, yeah, I would say lean Makeda. M. Holt, not exactly the most likable character himself. I don't know how much of his material you've seen. But yeah, I would say it's fair, especially since the follicle test. I don't believe that his 9-year-old was, doing a bunch of blow. I don't know what you were doing at 9 years old, but I wasn't doing blow.
Yeah, it seems crazy. It does seem crazy. But I don't know. Like, are those tests bullshit? I don't know anything about follicle test, and
they seem bullshit to me. I mean, I can't prove that. I'm assuming, not speaking for Nick, but I'm assuming that he's working to prove that that test is inaccurate, because it doesn't make any sense. In order to test that high, you would have to be a near daily user or a heavy weekend user of cocaine, and that doesn't really make sense for his 9-year-old daughter, in my opinion.
It doesn't make sense. I know that some people have been floating a theory that I don't even want to put it out here, right? But I'm sure you've heard the same theory related to, like, ADD. But there's a lot. I think there's a lot of, if we want to talk about attitudes about drugs and stuff, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy with people thinking that ADD medication is just a-okay and therapeutic. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever done that stuff, but to me, it seems really strong.
Not really my thing, but yeah, Adderall is basically speed. So yeah, and I heard you talking about Adderall. I don't know if you know, but you can snort Adderall just like you can snort cocaine. And so, not my thing. But yeah, I did hear you talk about that in Vyvanse, which I don't know as much about. Adderall never really been my thing, though. I don't know if it's your thing, but
not for decades. When I was in college, actually, when I was trying to finish that worthless PhD, and that's how a lot of people would get through stuff like that. It's not healthy. But what I remember thinking at the time was, like, damn, I just can't believe, like, this is legal, and that people can give this to their kids. And I know a lot of people get pissed off. I have people online all the time when I bring this up, the ADD stuff, getting pissed off. So I don't know. I don't have ADD, and I don't have kids. So whatever. Do you have kids? It doesn't matter.
I do have kids. Yeah. Yes.
I'm a barren, middle-aged woman. Yes.
You don't seem happy about it.
Well, I'm actually trying to pretend to be sad, because that's the thing that
is
people
it pretend
say a lot, right?
Or is it just you're really not happy? You're probably not happy about it.
I mean,
let's be real. Let's be real. You're not happy about it, right?
You wouldn't believe me if I said I was, actually, though. I think I'm one of those.
But I mean, you're living in the ghetto with a PhD, and you're childless. I don't know if you're completely barren or what the status is there, but you don't seem too thrilled about it. Most women, women were basically put here to have children, right? You don't seem that thrilled about it.
When you say we're put here to have children, I mean, like, we all, like, need to procreate,
I mean,
right?
Women
like all species,
birth the children, though, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say it's even
definitely true.
more of a biological yearning for a female to have a child.
I would totally agree with you. I mean, there's definitely I will always admit there's definitely some things that are strange about me. So you would agree, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
you watch my stuff. No, but I don't know. But put here to have children. So you think that there's like there's really no other
I mean,
function
you don't
for
have
women.
to, but yeah, I mean, I think, is that a controversial statement?
No, I mean not today. Not today. Probably not ever. I don't know. So I mean, feminists wouldn't like it, but I talk against a lot of modern feminism today. I mean, on my show the last 3 years, and so I started off talking about Johnny Depp, and then defending him, and then defending various other guys I think falsely accused. So there's probably a number of things that you and I are actually politically aligned on to a certain degree, but then other things such as I would say the Jewish question, for instance,
What do you
or
consider the
Holocaust.
Jewish question?
Well, I mean, Holocaust. Let's take Holocaust denial for one thing. Is that true, or is that a misrepresentation of your position?
If you mean, am I revisionist when it comes to the Holocaust? I don't address that. No,
What do you have any controversial views about the Holocaust then, or no? You don't talk about
I
that.
don't take a position on the Holocaust. It
So
doesn't
the things.
concern me. I don't argue about numbers or anything like that because some shit that happened, whatever, 83 years ago, however long ago it was, doesn't concern me in my modern life. And the fact that the Jewish lobby, to be quite honest, the Zionist lobby, use it as a bludgeon to control our foreign policy. They buy off our politicians, involve us in needless wars in the Middle East, and they use the Holocaust as the reason. Never again, all this and that. Yeah, I think that's bullshit. But I don't argue about the numbers. I don't care. That doesn't concern me.
So maybe there are things out there that people are saying, or they're interpreting you in a way that you don't accept or agree with, right? But again,
Well,
I'm not
I'm
an
not a
expert on you.
Holocaust revisionist. I mean, that's just a fact. Now, I've had some people on the air who have a different take, who would talk about things like that. But to me, it doesn't really matter. It's not a question that I concern myself with, like, how many perished or who did what or this or that. The Holocaust as a thing wasn't even really used as a wedge issue until the 1960s, until Hollywood picked it up, and I consider it a political wedge issue. And when you start arguing about numbers and stuff, I don't care. It doesn't affect me in any way whatsoever. What happened to the Jews back in 1940 or whenever, those years.
Are you and Nick Fuentes on the same page? Because I don't really know much about him either, but I hear people often criticizing him as well.
I used to stream on Nick Fuentes' website, cozy.tv, actually, and then we had a major falling out last summer where we had our own little war. But on certain things concerning this issue, as far as Zionist power controlling our foreign policy and increasingly our domestic policy, in certain states, Texas, I think Florida too. You live in Texas. You can be fired from your state employment if you join the boycott movement against Israeli goods. I don't see that as a fair thing. The restrictions against anti-Zionist speech on college campuses that we're increasingly seeing take place, I don't see that as a fair thing. I see that as complete bullshit, actually. And that's not how it was when I went through college. I don't think it was like that when you went through college either. So I see this as something they desperately want to separate anti-Zionist into anti-Jew, and I'm anti-Zionist. So.
Well, and I don't think that disagreeing with Israeli policy or disagreeing with certain political policies that are pro-Israeli that makes somebody an anti-Semite.
BDS, that was the word I was looking for. Boycott, divest, and sanction, I believe, is the official name. But you can be fired from a state employment in Texas for supporting that movement. That's a law in Texas.
So what are your like big issues on your channel, or like the stuff that you talk about a lot? I saw you had Trump on. You probably like hate Biden, right? And think he's ridiculous and like Weekend at Bernie's. He reminds me of Grandpa actually on Texas
I
Chainsaw
don't
Massacre.
actually hate Biden. I think that Biden and I mean Trump is they call him Zion Don for a reason. You know, I like Trump in general more because he's funnier and it'd be more entertaining if he got in. But I don't really think U.S. foreign policy would change at all. It may be even worse actually when it comes to Zionist control. But that being said, you know, if I had to pick, I'd probably still pick Trump just for entertainment reasons.
Do you think he's gonna win?
Yeah, I do believe he's going to win. It's looking that way, at least. They're talking about making a switch at the top of the ticket. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think it's looking likely he's going to win.
So do you like this YouTube or Rumble gig? I guess like you have to be on Rumble, right? Because YouTube, they just won't let you on anymore, right?
I'm allowed to be on YouTube. I just can't own a channel on YouTube. So I'm not technically banned from appearing there. I'm just banned from owning a channel there. So yeah, that's why I'm on Rumble.
Is Rumble like a free for all? Because I tried to do it and I couldn't get any views, but I kind of gave up after like 3 videos. But is it just like whatever you want to say? They don't give a shit?
Pretty much, unless you threaten violence or show a bunch of nudity or something like that. But yeah, I could say the N word, for instance, that you mentioned earlier. I could say a lot of other words. Of course, you know, there's N word, then there's soft A, you know. But yeah, I could say that, and I wouldn't get banned from Rumble.
I feel like it's a pretty tough game. I feel like the algorithms are really like it's really a challenge to get views, and of course it could have something to do with my content, right? Like people just don't like it as much. But I think it's a rough game. Like it's hard for even well-known people that I see starting off on YouTube, like celebrities, to get a lot of views. So I think that's one of the things that like really sucks about it. But I mean, you like it? I guess you've done it for years, right? Huh?
Yeah, this is my full-time job, and I've been a full-time streamer. I guess you could say full-time streamer for about 6 years, but I've been in this game for almost 10 since Gamergate. So I used to be a blogger before all this, and then I had a little incident, a little state-sponsored vacation, and then I came out and saw you could make a lot more money streaming. I already had the Killstream before then, but it was a once weekly show, and so I transformed it into a daily show, and so yeah, that's one of the reasons. I mean, I kind of have a built-in base of people that will follow me and know me and will find me wherever I go. So I have that advantage, having been in the game for that long and having
Gamergate. Yeah, I was gonna say Gamergate, man. Like I missed all of that, and I just saw every now and then I'd see like when that was going on, I'd see like some article of some journalist, usually left-wing journalist, bemoaning what was going on, and I have no idea. Like, was it basically like there was a video game that came out and a bunch of you gamers didn't like it, and it happened to be a woman who produced the video game, and like she was getting shit? Or am I totally off on what was happening?
That's close. She put out a game called Depression Quest and then fucked a bunch of reviewers, video reviewers, and her boyfriend wrote like a 10,000 word treatise on that, and then that kind of kicked it off. And there was a few other events that happened simultaneously. I won't go into the whole story, but
It was a big story though, right?
Yeah, it basically kicked off the modern what you see now online. Yeah, it kicked off the modern internet in terms of like warring and you know, online activism and stuff like that. It totally changed the game on that. Yeah.
Were y'all upset that like she felt like she was basically paying for reviews with sex? Was that the idea, that like the reviews weren't legitimate? Like, if y'all
I didn't really care about the bitch at all. I got in it to attack feminists and attack people like that. When I first started, I was more of the left variety, actually, although I was quickly dissuaded from that persuasion because I'd already seen on college campuses how feminists had kind of taken over, and it wasn't really about free speech. It wasn't really about, you know, the working man's party. It was about letting in illegals, which I was always against, and hardcore leftists. Bernie Sanders, there's quotes of him out there, where he said the same thing. Illegal immigration only benefits the wealthy, basically, and hurts the working class American citizen who are already present in America.
Well, I think people are catching on to that now. Like, this is the first time you're talking about race. We were talking about racism earlier, or accusations. This is the first time, I think, where you can talk about illegal immigration being a problem, and you're going to have tons of people who agree, and people are not accepting anymore that charge or that allegation that it's racist to be concerned about it, right? So, I mean, that DEI stuff like that, I think that it's being exposed, and I have a lot of issues with modern feminism, so that's what most of my channel is talking about Me Too and the presumption of innocence, and how many guys have been railroaded. And it's happened a lot on college campuses, as you know, with these college rape assault tribunals. And basically it's administrators using basically a 50-50 scale, 51-49.
Preponderance of the evidence is what they call it, yeah.
Yeah, and just they say 50 plus a feather is how they put it,
Yeah.
like just barely. So what that comes down to, as you know, is a lot of women make allegations, and they just kind of push it a little over the edge, and then the guys are kicked out of school, and they have that on permanent record. And so a lot of guys are suing now, and good for them, and they're winning. Some of them are.
Yeah, I think we agree on that issue, and it's completely bogus. And of course, preponderance of the evidence is a totally different scale than beyond reasonable doubt, and I know a little bit about that too. So family court, for instance, usually preponderance of the evidence versus criminal court, beyond a reasonable doubt. Now we're talking Rekieta earlier. Those are two different scales of justice, basically, that he's having to deal with at the same time. And they're using one to try to force his hand on the other, because obviously he wants his kids back. I don't speak for him, but I think he said that publicly. Yeah, I think it's total bullshit. But going back to my interview, you said there were no new things revealed by my interview, but one of the new things that was revealed was that his kids weren't wards of the state. They were actually still staying with his family, and that was in dispute. There were several other, I thought, clippable moments from that interview that revealed some information. And you said I was on heroin, so I mean that was kind of the impetus for this conversation. Do you think I'm on heroin tonight?
You seem much more together. Well, I didn't think you were the other day. It's a joke. I understand you didn't like it, but you seem like much more together tonight. I don't know. Maybe, but you say you were tired last time. Totally, that's fine. I accept that.
Well, yeah, I'm more together. I'm in my home studio here in Merida, Mexico, actually, is where I live. Like I said, in the Yucatan, legally, by the way. I'm a residente temporal, is what they call it. So, yeah, I actually live in Mexico. So that's, for a racist, that would be an odd place to pick to live. I don't know. I've never been fired for racism or anything like that either. So, I don't know. Have you ever called a black person the N-word?
I really never have. But I'll tell you, I grew up in a family with grandparents who were like Cajun, South Louisiana, old school, and I heard it all the time, for sure. And not with the and not as you've described it, but like hardcore. There very much were hardcore racist attitudes decades ago, and some people are still racist, but I think society has come a long, long way in that, and now is like overcorrecting or going too far with some of the stuff that we're talking about, DEI, illegal immigration. But
would you say you have zero racism?
Zero racism. Do you think anybody has zero racism?
No.
So, yeah, I mean, I think people in minority races, I think that they have racism. So I think that everybody has some, even like unconscious or barely perceptible or whatever. I do think everybody has some, but I think that I don't think that it rises to the level with most people, with most of us, of being something that affects our like actions or how we relate to people. I really don't. I think that's overdone, overblown.
But you would consider yourself to have some racism?
To have some racism.
To have some
What does that mean?
racist thought. You know what I mean? Like, you're not free from racism. Nobody is. You just said that.
Yeah, but what is a racist? What do we mean by a racist thought exactly?
Well, I mean, you just said that there is no such thing as totally free from racism.
Right.
Right? So you're saying that you have at least some racism inside you.
But I'm saying also it's like unconscious, very often imperceptible. So like I wouldn't. That's why I'm saying it's like I wouldn't know consciously like what to point to. But do I think generally like everybody has some degree? I think it's likely. Yeah. Now, if we're talking about certain attitudes that are backed up actually by evidence, like for instance, you can see that statistically there are more murders and more criminality that occur in majority neighborhoods, for instance, like
I'm from
things like
Memphis,
that.
so I'm very well aware of majority minority districts. Yes.
But that doesn't get down to the level of like, if I meet someone of a particular race, then I have these assumptions about them, right? It's more so I think that like people are aware of like general realities that seem to exist at times, and I don't think that's racism, but I think that gets labeled as racism or called racism.
Well, I think only one of us has been married to a person from another race. I don't know. Maybe I don't know your full history, but that would be me. I just got through dating a Mexican, so yeah. I mean, but to say, you implied that I was a racist and anti-Jewish. I would just call it stating the obvious that powerful Zionist interests do control the United States and much of the West. And if they didn't, you wouldn't see the United States vetoing all these resolutions at the UN, stopping the genocide in Gaza. And so for me, that's just kind of an obvious observation. You can say they have an outsized proportion of influence comparative to their population. Zionist Jews, however you want to put it. I separate the two because there are Jews who oppose Zionism.
There are a lot.
Yeah, there are. But, I mean, do you disagree with that statement?
Do I disagree that there are problematic policies that come out of like the Israeli political lobby?
Zionist control of, AIPAC, whatever you want to call it. But it's not just AIPAC. It's there are other organizations, but the ADL, for instance, and they're quick to label you an anti-Semite for stating the obvious, basically, right? That they do have outsized influence in our government. They do have most of our politicians in their pocket. You saw a bill pass recently in Congress, basically designed to get kids kicked out of school. For activism against Israel, activism against Zionism, and it had overwhelming support. It had overwhelming support. 375, I think, voted for it. Now there were some dissenters, mostly on the left, unfortunately, but there were a few on the right. But when you see a bill like that pass on behalf of a foreign nation, in America, this is not speaking about American policies. They're speaking about policies from a foreign country. They obviously have outsized influence, right? Like, I mean, that's not.
We're in bed. Yeah, we're in bed with a lot of people, and it's not necessarily to our interest. I mean, our relationship with Saudi Arabia, for one, that gets brought up a lot. It's probably not something that you're as focused on, but like, yeah, we are spending way too much money in other countries, and
the Saudis are aligned with Israel, so I mean, unofficially so, but they're basically in an unofficial alliance with Israel now against Iran, and so is Egypt and Jordan even. So,
do you feel like Islamic fundamentalism is a problem, or not really?
Yeah, I feel like it's a problem, but I feel like it's a secondary issue, honestly. Now, some people in Europe would disagree with me. Perhaps we have some UK viewers who deal with a little more of that, right? People in Europe, Truck of Peace there in Nice, France, and stuff like that. So some people in Europe would probably or possibly disagree with my take, but yeah, I don't support Islamic fundamentalism either. But I do
Well,
see Hamas, for instance, as a natural reaction against, what is it now, 70 years of occupation, however long, 60 years of occupation, and you have a people who are basically being held in an open air prison camp, and you know, things are going to happen. People are going to strike back. Now, that doesn't mean I co-sign the strike back. Obviously, there were some bad things done by Hamas, but if you look into it a little bit closer, you'll also hear about, I believe it's called the Hannibal Directive, where Israel actually killed a lot of those people that they blame Hamas for killing, so that they would not be able to be taken hostage. And that's a long-standing policy of the Israeli government to actually kill their own citizens, to kill their own military, to keep them from being taken hostage. And you see the whole hostage thing now. That's why, because it gives Hamas or whoever leverage if more Israelis are taken hostage.
the problem with all that is that it's like a game. It's like a game of infinite recessing mirrors, in that the Israelis will say, "Well, we're doing this because of this," and Hamas says, "We're doing this because of this," and it just goes back all the way. Like, I don't know. Do you believe that Israel should not have a state there in the Middle East as they do?
Well, I mean, I believe in free Palestine. To be honest with you, that being said, is in reality, can you get rid of an Israeli state? I don't really think so. Now, their state was founded on terrorism, King David Hotel bombing, the Irgun, assassinated a lot of people, killed a lot of people. They massacred tons and tons of Palestinians during the demarcation split there, and it's on record. There's Israeli soldiers who are still alive or were alive recently talking about all the atrocities that they committed against the Palestinians, and they happen to be quite similar to the stories that you hear about Hamas and cooking babies and all this wild nonsense that didn't happen. But the Israeli soldiers are on record talking about what they did, and you can look this up. I'm not making this up.
I mean, I think if you look at the history of it, that's why, I mean, I don't have an opinion. We were joking earlier about me being Jewish or IDF, but I actually, I have not on my channel declared an opinion, which people get really actually frustrated. And I have some of your fans and stuff were looking at my channel and saying, "Oh, she never actually will express an opinion. She's just kind of wishy-washy." But a lot of this stuff, like what I say, is it looks like a fucking mess, and it looks like we're talking about historical stuff that's going back decades or longer. It's hard to sort through it and come to a decision of whose fault it is. So, like, Israel's done a lot of terrible shit, and the Hamas and other Palestinian organizations and with Iran also involved have done a lot of bad shit. So I don't know. It's beyond me, but.
Well, I would say it's definitely Israel's fault because they were allowed in and peacefully coexisted with the Palestinians until they decided not to do so and form terrorist groups.
But they didn't actually.
And the British too. I have to throw the British in there too. They didn't exactly manage things so well either. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I was going to say though, like early in the history, there were attacks from the Palestinian side as well. I mean, that's the problem is you look at it, and it's even going back to the beginning, even when there were Jewish settlers there and it wasn't declared a formal state, you still had these tensions erupting. And so you talk to somebody, for instance, who's pro Israel, and they will say to you, every bad thing you tell them about Israel, right? They'll say, "Yes, but look at this, and they did this to us." And so that seems like that's the frustration that I have looking at big historical problems like that. Is it seems like there's never a point at which we can stop and say, "Oh, this person was clearly in the wrong," unless we're talking about the real horrific figures in history, like Stalin or something. In my opinion, I don't know, but I get that your position on some of these things has been misrepresented, or that is different. That you're saying that
I would
what
say
I
have
had heard.
a much more nuanced position than what you presented or were presented with. Yeah.
And that's true for me too, honestly. Like, Earthquake. No, that's true for me too, though. With the Me Too stuff that I do, is that I get labeled a misogynist and a woman hater and someone who's in favor of rapists and things like that. When really, I think that these guys that I talk about, the guys that I choose to talk about on my show, are innocent. But then you get these labels. So, I mean, I get that too. I don't know. I think to a degree, we all end up becoming a kind of a caricature of that's not accurate. So, I don't know. But
What would you consider your caricature to be?
a woman hater, misogynist, somebody who is an extremist on gender issues. And I mean, honestly, a number of people have a problem with my views on things like DEI and stuff. So, I have a number of fans that are more left wing. Because I started my YouTube doing the Johnny Depp stuff, it was not political. My show was not blatant. It wasn't political. And I've tried hard to keep it pretty apolitical. But when I started doing shows where I talked about my political beliefs, which are generally right of center, but more libertarian, a number of people don't like that. And I'm really pro-choice. So that's another thing that a number of people get upset about.
Yeah, I mean, Roe versus Wade was decided, but I've always taken the position that, I'm against abortion personally. Would never participate in such an act or do such an act. Now, Roe's already been decided now, so it doesn't really matter to me, but my position always was before that. I do think it should be left to the states. But here, hold on, I'll let
Walrus
this play.
sent $10 on Rumble. Palestine never set up sniper nests on the border shooting kids.
Yeah.
Hamas was created by that
Walrus
shit.
says Palestine never set up sniper nests on the border shooting kids. Hamas was created by that shit, is what he said. I mean, if you ask me who's more to blame, it would be Israel. And you can't expect to keep people in prison for 60, not even 60, 70 years, however long it's been, and not expect a retaliation, right? Matter of fact, many scholars argue that there's a right of retaliation against people who are oppressed, and that it's not against the Geneva Convention for Hamas or whoever to fight back against that.
I mean, that's definitely one way of looking at it. Like I said, though, there's lots of stuff that lots of incidents that the Israelis can point to. And so to me, it gets really frustrating. I mean, I've read about the history and watched lots of documentaries, various perspectives and stuff, but I just have to plead on that, not plead ignorance, but I just will never get to a point, I think, where I have a definite answer on what needs to happen there. I mean, we've been trying for decades, right? Politicians to solve it. So,
yeah,
but I don't like seeing this. I don't like seeing the footage out of Gaza with kids blown up, and I don't support necessarily what Israel is doing. I really don't.
Well, you mentioned, you have some left-wing viewers. I would say there are more left-wing elected officials actually who speak out against, or at least more in favor of what I'm saying now, even though most of my audience, I think, would consider themselves right-wing or distant right. But we do have some lefties in here too. And, there's strong anti-Zionist sentiment on the left, maybe even stronger than on the right, actually, especially among elected officials. And that's one reason why you see they want to ban TikTok. They want to ban all these college campuses or protests on college campuses because college campuses have traditionally been kind of a wake-up center for what's going on in the Middle East, and most people don't really even think about it necessarily until they get to college, and if they don't go, then maybe they never think about it, right? Just back Israel, they're our greatest ally, etc. But I know when I was in college, it was thought about and talked about all the time, and now they want to kick you out of college if you're part of a Free Palestine organization or you're saying the wrong things, etc. I would consider, not to belittle Me Too, I think that's important. And as far as, men's rights and family court, believe me, I got a lot of things I could say about that. And a lot of fathers' rights, etc. I think it's kind of all related, honestly. But I don't know that trumps, to use a certain word, Zionist control of our government, right? Which I think they do control our government.
I guess too, like honestly, I think that a lot of our issues, I understand people get mad about our involvement in foreign nations and all the money that we give away and have in what we're doing in Ukraine, what we're doing with Israel. I mean, but our biggest problems are these domestic economic issues that like nobody wants to solve. I mean, there's like, like
Yeah, but who
the debt,
controls that?
it's insane.
Like who are the most powerful interests in the country, money interests? I mean, most of them are Zionists. I'm just being real. Like, I mean, how do you see things portrayed in the media? With a few exceptions, here and there when it gets really terrible. Maybe they say something, but
What link though would if we said that most politicians were, we'll say, pro Israel, what link does that have other than some of the money that we give to them, which is still not a significant portion of our expenditures? What significance does that really have though for our economy?
It's not significant for us, but it's significant for them. And they use American-made weapons to kill Palestinians, which creates. You mentioned Islamic fundamentalism. I could think of no better way to create an Islamic fundamentalist than a U.S.-made bomb dropping on your fucking house and wiping out half your family. I don't think that creates pro-American attitudes. Matter of fact, I'm quite certain that it doesn't, and makes us more unsafe in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, we do that with a great deal of our foreign policy. So I mean, I understand that, but I'm just saying that for me, it's just not personally.
What other part of our foreign policy? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we have a long history, not so much today, but a problematic history in Southeast Asia and South America, and I mean, pretty much any place on the globe. And then there's the war in Ukraine, which is another one that's hard to get your head around,
I
even
don't
though
support,
it's.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm asking you, and it doesn't matter, but I guess what I'm asking you is why is it that the situation in Palestine is such a big deal, seemingly to you? I might be putting words in your mouth, but such a big deal.
Well, I didn't make it a big deal. The Zionists made it a big deal.
No, but I mean, compared to all the other problems and all the other stuff I'm talking about, though, like that's one of your bigger points of focus, right? Or no?
No, that's right. No, it is, and it's because it's the center of our foreign policy. They have 95% of our politicians bought off to do their bidding, and it's not in America's interest to be Israel's lapdog at the UN and elsewhere. And you'll see these Security Council votes, and of course, there's 5 members on the Security Council, and there's always one veto. And I'll leave it up to you to guess which country exercises that veto on behalf of Israel. It's the United States. So pretty much the world agrees with me. And you have these American politicians bought off to do the bidding of Israel, and they do so.
And our politicians, but they're bought off by the banks and they're bought off by big pharma and all of this.
But
Would you agree?
Okay, no, okay.
Are you gonna go back and say that? Well, it's a bunch of Jews.
Well, who controls the banks?
To me, this is kind of like what Kanye was saying, and this is where it didn't really make sense to me. To me, just because you have a significant, a majority or a large number of people in particular industries, say with Kanye, he was talking about recording executives, and you're talking about some of this other stuff. That doesn't mean, though, that the problem is the racial makeup of those entities. It has something to do with the culture of those entities and money. I just don't get the connection.
Racism and culture are like that. And so, Kanye was talking about certain things. I mean, who controls the banks? Who controls a lot of these media organizations? Who has the most money?
What does Jewishness have to do with that problem? What I don't understand is you can say that.
Well, they all support Israel. They all support Zionism. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean,
what does that have to do with Kanye's issues, these economic issues? That's what I don't understand.
Kanye was making a finer point about basically Jewish record managers, record labels, controlled record labels, screwing black artists out of their royalties and monies for decades, which is a documented fact. Many of these blues singers, many of these classic artists that you love, or maybe you love, I don't know, actually had their music catalogs stolen by just so happened to be Jewish representation, and they died penniless and broke, and in halfway homes, and those are just facts. And Big Mama Thornton, we were talking about. Well, they were all Jews who did it. Like, I don't know what to say. Like,
do you think if there were white? Okay, do you think though, if there were no Jews, or not, it was not, these institutions were non-Jewish, that they would then behave in a more benevolent manner to, for instance,
well, I can't say. I can't say because that's not the way it is. I mean, right? Like, I mean, we can't answer a hypothetical. We can only answer, and I don't typically answer hypotheticals because they're useless. But Jewish
I think if you were to replace, if you were to take out a number of these institutions, banks, what have you, if you were to take out, if you were to reduce the number of Jewish executives or those in power, that you would see the same policies. Now, not toward Israel, I'll give you that, but I'm just saying this idea, though, that society, that it has this problem with too many Jewish people in power, and that is causing all these negative effects. I just think it's just human nature. You don't think that if there were white executives at these companies, or non-Jewish executives, that they would be just as greedy?
It's not necessarily that the Jews, quote unquote, are always in power. A lot of times, they're spending their money. Speaking of politicians and stuff like that, but the music industry, the modern music industry, and the modern Hollywood was created by Jews. I mean, that's not.
I get that point.
I mean, that's not a controversial statement, right? I
get that point.
So they set this system up, is what I'm saying. Now, would it have been different if it was controlled by Chinese or Japanese? I don't know. Maybe not. Typically you want to make as much money as possible.
Exactly. So it's not a Jewish issue. There's a lot of this economic stuff. No.
Would it be the way it is now? I can't answer that question because it's a hypothetical. Jews set up these industries and they screwed black artists. Kanye, everything he said was true. A lot of these black artists died penniless, homeless, and it doesn't get talked about by the media. And who has an outsized proportion?
Like one of the biggest narratives.
Who has an outsized proportion of power in the media, though? It's the Jews, right?
It's talked about. It's in every movie that I've ever seen about any artist that, oh my, I'm not getting the money that I deserve, and they have these tragic lives. I mean, I just don't think that it's tied to race or heritage or anything like that. I understand on Israeli policy, right? If you don't agree with our policies toward Israel, and you say there are too many, that our politicians are in bed with the Jewish lobby or pro-Israel lobby, I should say, okay, but I don't, this other stuff, it just seems like to me, I guess that's where I perceive it as being racist, because I actually think that you're making it about race, and when it's really just about human nature, and that anybody at those recording companies and executive positions, any race, put a bunch of women in there or whatever, they're still going to be greedy. But you can't
say that because that's not how you're extrapolating something that's not the case, right? I mean, you could say that's how it would be. I don't know that that's how it would be. Perhaps if there were some, black managers, I would like to think maybe they wouldn't fuck over their own people as much as was done under a system that was set up by Jews. And it's not even being anti-Jew. I'm just saying they set up these systems. They set up these industries. Media in the United States, what we understand as the mainstream media, was basically, for the most part, not all, but specifically Hollywood and the record industry was set up by Jews. That's not a racist statement to me. Is that racist to you?
It's not racist to say that it was set up by a majority of Jews or whomever, but to me the racism is then the assumption that you make that the negative attributes of these particular economic systems or what have you, or these companies, is something that's tied to Jewishness rather than just that's the nature of business.
Because they set up the companies. I mean, if somebody else set up the companies, you might have a point, but I don't know that it's inherent in their, we'll never know that, right? That it's inherent in their brain to fuck over their artists or to, promote a certain agenda or anything like that. I can't say that. Some people do say that. I know people who say that. That's just inherently a Jewish thing or whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is these are things that were clearly, these industries set up by Jews, and they have a long history of screwing over these artists. And
criticize the industries, but why keep harping on the Jew thing if you just said that you can't actually say
I mean, am I wrong? You admitted that I'm right.
I admitted that yes, that there are majorities of Jewish people in these industries, and that a number of them set some of these industries up. I don't, though, where it gets racist to me, and I don't understand, is the assumption that that these issues are tied to their Jewishness rather than just human nature. And if you had white people set them up, or black people, or women, or whatever, it would still be, you would still have these issues. But you do seem to be implying that there is something specific about
No, you're
Jewishness.
implying that for me. I know people who imply that. I'm not one of those people. I'm just stating a fact or facts that these industries, specifically Hollywood and the record industry, were set up and controlled and are still controlled by Jewish interests. I mean, that's just a fact. Now, hypothetically, if it were women, if it were, whatever, Mongolians, like, I mean, I couldn't say because that's not how it works. And then you combine that with the fact that, there really aren't that many Jews in the United States. There's like 2%. And so, what happened here, I guess, is what I'm saying. And Ye and a lot of the black artists, I think, have a great case to be made, to be a little pissed off about how things are going. But you look at, just to be quite frank, Jewish representation in the media is out of line with their representation in society. You have 2%. Jewish people in America, and then you have, just go look at the roster that you see on television. It's a lot more than 2%. The people who run these networks are a lot more than 2%. And then you combine. Wait, one more thing. Then you combine that with the fact that all of our politicians are completely bought off by Zionist interests. So
I get that the pro-Israel lobby is powerful. I understand, but so would you say that there's something wrong or nefarious or suspicious about the fact that you have an outsized portion of executives at these companies who are Jewish? You're saying that that's due to what, like nepotism or some kind of Jewish cabal?
No, I don't use the word Jewish cabal or worldwide Jewish conspiracy. I don't actually believe in that. I think.
Do you think there's a nepotism that's keeping other races out?
There 100% is. They talk about that. Jews intermarry. They hire their own. They promote their own. I mean, by the way, it's something that other races could emulate as well. By the way, it's not necessarily. I mean, it nefariously impacts, other races as it is, but it's something that other races could practice. Like, I'm not even saying that. These things couldn't be done by other races. It just so happens to be done by Jews, right? And so, they take care of their own. Yeah, they take care of their own community. They keep money in their own community. They hire their kids. They hire their, relations, I guess you could say, and that's a standard practice, and they talk about it openly, and they talk openly about controlling the media. There's all sorts of articles out there where you can read Jews bragging about running Hollywood, bragging about running the record industry. I mean, this is not a secret, but if you say it now, they try to paint you as, anti-Semitic, and it's not that. It's just the truth, which you admitted to.
All I've agreed with is that we do have an outsized portion of Jewish people in certain industries, and that there is a powerful pro-Israel lobby, of course, that gives a lot of money to politicians, just like there are powerful pharma lobbies and bank lobbies and all that. So I still don't understand why the focus is so much with a number of commentators like you seems to be so much on the Jewish thing. And then what? Do you want them purged from these positions, or what? And then what's the next step too? I don't understand.
See, purge is a word that has a certain connotation. And if you're asking me if I want people killed or taken out or anything, no. But I mean, do I think there should be a more equal representation of what actually makes up our country? Yeah. Do I think our Congress should get on board with actually, actual foreign policy that benefits America and not Israel and not Ukraine, which you may not know, but does have a certain heritage precedent, and although that goes deeper than that, CIA and all this stuff, so I won't lump them fully in with Israel. But if you're asking me if I think given, what was it, 60 billion to Ukraine, something like that, another extra 40 billion on top of the other billions that we give to Israel in emergency funding, if you're asking me if I think that's good for America, no, I don't. If you're asking me if I think anti-free speech policies being enacted on college campuses to shut down dissent against Zionist control of our government is a good thing, no, I don't. If you're asking me if I think banning TikTok because it's a bastion for anti-Zionist, you can call it propaganda, you can call it thought, you can call it whatever you want. Propaganda is not necessarily a dirty term, in my opinion. I don't think that's a good thing. And you have to ask yourself, why are those things happening? They had no problems with TikTok when the George Floyd riots were going on, and there was all this pro BLM and burn it down, and there was no problem until all of a sudden October 7th happened. Then all of a sudden there was this outcry against what the Zionists were doing, and then it was time to shut it down. And so I don't think those things are unconnected, and I think it's very easy to see that they are connected.
Well, I'm definitely not in favor of abridgments of free speech, and that was one of the things when all this this uproar about DEI and Harvard that happened, months ago. That was one of
they fired the president of Harvard, I believe, for.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, why do you think they fired her though? It wasn't because. Do you know why?
Yeah, no, I'm saying though that was one of the unfortunate aspects of that, was that it was unfair to, I think, to the students and to those who were really trying to protect free speech. So I think we're more or less on the same page on that.
Yeah, but they fired her. It was because she wasn't speaking out strongly enough against the anti-Zionist protests and the anti-Zionist groups on her campus, and she actually defended them. And so all of a sudden she had to go because wealthy Zionist interests said they were going to start pulling money from the endowments. And she's not the only one. Other college presidents face the same issues.
I've spoken out against that.
But why did it only happen now, though? Is what I'm saying. You see the point I'm making, though, right? Like it's only happening. It only happened now. It didn't happen when they were doing BLM or Me Too this, Me Too that, which I do think is an important issue, by the way. But it only happened when masses started organizing against Zionist control of the government and speaking out against the genocide in Gaza. And why did it only happen then? I guess is my point.
Well, there was also a whole other aspect to that too, with the outcry over plagiarism and DEI. But I will tell you, I totally agree that the political pressure coming from pro-Israel lobby in that way is problematic. I'm not arguing that there are no problematic events occurring in our society right now or worldwide because of a large Israeli lobby. I'm just saying, though, that I think that a number of these conversations, like with what we're talking about with Kanye and so forth, it's problematic to see these issues as a Jewish issue mostly. But yeah, if we're talking about the Israeli-Palestinian question, I totally agree that students should be able to protest within reason. Now, if we're talking about actual harassment, which maybe in some of these cases was occurring,
I don't support political violence and and stuff like that.
Right.
And there's been some false claims as well. I don't, but no, you can't attack students on campus and stuff like that, Jewish or otherwise. I don't support political violence. So never have on this show, never would. But that's not what we're talking about, right? Like we're talking about freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. Now I know there've been some allegations made, or they couldn't get to class, or this or that. But if you look into it a little bit deeper, some of the more serious accusations, she was Jewish, I guess, said somebody poked her in the eye with a flag, and then you look at the tape, and it was actually like the flag just barely grazed her face. It wasn't even the pointy part, the pole, the top of the flag. It was like just the side of the flag grazed her face, and then she felt like she was Cristiano Ronaldo out there on the pitch. And so yeah, I do think that there's a lot of bullshit when that comes into play too. And that's been proven. And a lot of the stories coming out about Hamas, and I'm not a Hamas guy. I just know why Hamas happened. First off, they were backed by Israel. I don't know if you know that. Created by Israel as a counterweight to the Palestinian Authority in order to weaken them. Now, that's a longer story, but Hamas was actually created and funded and backed by Israel.
There's lots of twists and turns when we look at these problematic histories. Just like when we were in Afghanistan in bed with Mujahideen, and at one point with Bin Laden, right? So I get it. I totally get it. Our foreign policy is fucked up. I don't understand the powerful focus that some of you seem to have on this in particular, when there's all kinds of shitty foreign policy that we've been engaged in for decades. And also, I don't agree that there are these deeply systemic issues in these different industries, like Kanye's complained about, that are related to Jewishness. But I think we understand each other's perspectives, at least on that. So
how many, by the way, I'm trying to, I don't know if I can find this stat easily, but how many senators or House members do you think hold dual citizenship between the United States and Israel?
I have no idea. Do you know?
I'm looking for the number right now. Somebody in chat may know. Let's see. I don't know if I have the exact stats. I don't want to misquote it and mess up my arguments that I'm already making, but there are quite a few. And somebody in chat may have that stat. Could you see a problem with that? That we have people, our elected officials, who hold dual citizenship. Now, at some point, I could get a Mexican citizenship, right, if I wanted to. But I wouldn't be sitting in Congress, I wouldn't be creating laws, and I would still be an American regardless. But these dual citizens in Congress are creating laws that benefit, the country that they're a dual citizen of, Israel, right?
Yeah, that seems problematic. But then again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how big of an issue that is. If you say somebody maybe in the chat can find it.
Yeah, I'm looking for the number, and you would think it would be easier to find, actually. But I can't find the exact number. But there are plenty. Let's see. I'm looking through here. I don't know if I can find the number right now, but there are plenty who hold dual citizenship, I guess is what I'll say, because I can't find the exact number, and I don't want to be wrong. But there are many in the House, many in the Senate, many in the media. I don't know. I just think these are things that aren't really talked about anywhere else besides shows like this and other shows similar to this. And will it change? Probably not anytime soon, but it definitely won't change if people don't speak out about it. And I know you keep going back to the industries, and it's not inherently, a Jewish thing. I'm not saying it's a mentally Jewish trait to fuck people over, right? Or to be usurious, or to. Some people do say this, by the way. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, they set up these industries that are nepotistic, and for decades and decades have screwed over these artists, and particularly black artists, by the way, who may have come from a disadvantaged, part of the United States. Maybe they don't have the education that some of these other people do, right? The managers, the ones who sign them to the record deals, and then they get their advance, and then they find out later on, after their record stops selling and their advance is all spent, that they don't own the rights to their own song. So every time it gets played on the radio, it gets money goes to Leibovitz, not the black artist, right? And I use that Leibovitz as a stand-in Jewish name, basically, right? You could see why that might upset some black artists, right?
Yeah, there are lots of people upset when they are cogs in a system and they're not making as much money as they want to, and it's unfair. You could go back to, there's lots of people in academia who are upset that administrators make a lot more money than the people who are actually teaching, and there are people upset at Amazon because they're not, the warehouse stockers. They're upset that they're not making what the executives are making. So I get it. I get that there are these systems. I just can't like agree, and I get stuck at the idea that this is an issue with Jewish people or too many Jews in these institutions. Now, if we're talking about foreign policy or we're talking about speech on these college campuses, I see your point.
Yeah, I can see we're not going to come to agreement on that part, on the foreign policy part, maybe at least, but and the outsized control they hold over our. It's not just foreign policy, by the way; it's domestic too. But foreign policy is what really got me into it in the first place. But I mean, I see some people in the chat, and it's like, well, it's kind of spelled out. They set up these industries. They're nepotistic. They've screwed over these artists for decades. I'm not saying it's inherent. By the way, somebody in chat said it's called. I didn't say this, but they said it's called being Jewed for a reason. Now that is an actual term. I didn't come up with that term. Probably a black person came up with that term, if I had to guess. And you talk about the slum lords in New York City. I would say black people are probably far more woke on some of these issues than whites because they've had to deal from a disadvantaged position. Whereas, at least if you're white majority, maybe you're middle class, you're a little bit more advantaged, right? So I think most of everything Ye said about the contracts was spot on, really. Like it's true, right? Like he didn't say any lies. I'm not saying it's inherently Jewish, but these industries are because they set them up. Now, if somebody else had set them up, we wouldn't be having the same conversation. But you look at Big Pharma. You mentioned earlier. You talked about big banks. You talk about big media. You talk about control, and we agreed on this. You talk about control of the Congress and foreign policy and squelching out free speech on college campuses. Do you not see how someone could see all these things as being related?
Not a lot of them, unless again we're talking about things related to the Israeli-Palestinian issue. But otherwise, no. I mean, my issues with Big Pharma, for example, have nothing to do with the Jewishness of the people running it. If you had, I think anybody that you had in there running things, and you had, let's face it, you have a significant number also of non-Jewish people in these industries as well. But if you have them running things, a number of people of different ethnic makeup, a number of whom are Jewish. But again, I think.
Okay, so you can't deny it, right? Like, I mean, the majority stockholders, the majority controllers of these industries, they just so happen to be Jewish. Now, that doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with
I get your point.
I'm just saying they set up this corrupt system, and it just so happens that it's run by Jews.
Yes, it just so happens. Well, and I think we could look at, is it possible that there are certain historical and cultural realities that have influenced certain groups of people to take on certain traits or habits of being more studious, more oriented toward success, professional achievement? I mean, so again,
usury, yeah. I mean, because it was banned for loan to loan money for Christians in Europe and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, there is a certain historical way that things progress.
To me, it's not any different from the argument that then you're almost making. It almost to me gets into a kind of a DEI argument where it's not really any different from people complaining that the reason why we have a lot of white people at the heads of certain industries and fewer black people is because because the system is racist against blacks. But you don't think that, right?
I don't think that this. Do I think the system is racist against blacks? I think that blacks, in many cases, come from impoverished and disadvantaged positions compared to whites.
Yes, and Jewish people come from particular backgrounds that might enable them to, on the whole, be more successful in the aggregate as a group. But that doesn't mean, though, that black people are in the position that they're in because of an inherent issue with whites oppressing them, right? Isn't that what you believe? So I don't see where it's any different from the Jewish question, and because otherwise, I mean, to me, it's kind of a DEI perspective to say that we've got too many Jews in these industries,
Well,
leading these
I mean,
industries.
I don't know if you're wanting me, like, you're trying to trap me here or whatever, but,
Oh, and
you
I
know,
just
there's like this thing called
probably see it.
slavery and, you know, how the blacks got here in the first place. Might want to look into that too. I don't know if you know some of the interests who were behind that, but I know it'll come as a shock to you. But some of those interests are related to the same people we were talking about just a few moments ago, how they got here in the first place. But we won't go there. That's a whole separate conversation. But do I think? I mean, it would be foolish to say. You know, that blacks haven't been historically disadvantaged in the United States, and I don't. That doesn't bother me to say that, and some people in chat may disagree with that, but I think that that's obviously the case, right? But how did that happen? What, you know, how did we get to that spot, etc.? So,
Well, look, we've talked for a long time. I did not expect. I will give you this. I did not expect this conversation to
yeah, I
be
figured I'd
about
just yell at you and
intellectual
call you a
topics.
bitch and all that, and you know, I told everybody I was going to do that, but I figured it'd be better just to have a. I'm not on heroin, by the way, or any other drugs. But I figured I would have a productive, hopefully a productive conversation instead. Now I do feel like you're willingly blind maybe on some of these topics, but I will take a W that you at least recognize that you can speak for yourself, but you at least recognize that there's Zionist control of our foreign policy, at least when it comes to Israel, and this stuff happening with shutting down free speech on college campuses and trying to ban TikTok, and this anti-Semitism scare, in my opinion, didn't just come out of nowhere, right? This wasn't happening when they were, you know, saying take out Whitey. I'll use that since you're going to put this on YouTube, maybe. When they were burning down the cities over George Floyd, there was none of this in the media, but now there is, right? Like, so you can at least see that.
You're
right?
saying when they were when the George Floyd
The
protests were going on,
BLM, like all
there
that was
was none of what,
supported.
though?
That was supported by the media, though, right? Like, when it's okay, now we're pointing the fingers at the Zionists. That's not supported by the media. That's not supported by the government. And there was a little pushback in the government against BLM. I'm not going to say there was zero. But all of a sudden, there's this huge uproar where we have to pass new laws on behalf of a foreign nation. We're passing laws on behalf of a foreign nation where you can't speak out. You live in a state in Texas with a PhD where if you were to, say, get a job at UT Austin or wherever, and all of a sudden you decided to join BDS or join some pro-Palestinian organization, they could legally fire you from your job according to state code. Do you know that?
Yeah, no, I know. I've talked about this this legislation before, and I agree. Like with, I mean, there are people in Congress who, like you said, are speaking out against it. Thomas Massey and others like that.
True, and some on the left too, by the way, and I give them credit as well. But there's no other nation that exists for. If I speak out about Uganda, they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean, right? Like,
we don't have a large Ugandan population.
We don't have a large Jewish population. Is what I'm getting at. We have a 2%. So, right? Do you understand? It's not about the number of Jews or Zionists in the country, and there are anti-Zionist Jews, like Norman Finkelstein for one. Like, there's plenty out there. Like,
yeah,
but it's not about the number. It's about the power. It's about the control. Why is this only happening for one country, and it's not happening on behalf of others? Do you see what I'm saying?
I would deny that it is only. I mean, I remember back in the wake of 9/11 and the discussions that were happening about Islamic fundamentalism and about what we were doing over there in Islamic countries. And I remember that there were a lot of people saying we have an Islamophobia problem and we have is Islamophobic speech and we need to deal with that and stuff. So I think that there are these cycles in history where
were there any laws passed though? Not really. And there's some doubts about 9/11. We won't go into that. That's a little bit deeper of a conversation.
We won't disagree on that.
There's some questions about what happened after 9/11 and who did it benefit, and what's been the course of the country since then.
You're a truther. You're a 9/11 truther.
No, I didn't say that. But I said there are some questions about who did that benefit? 9/11.
I know the whole theory. And
I'm
some
not
other
saying
time,
it.
maybe.
I'm not saying it. I'm just asking. And regardless of what you think happened on 9/11, there are no laws that say I can be fired from UT Austin if I join an anti-Egyptian group. There are no laws that say I can be fired from UT Austin if I join an anti-Iranian group. But there are laws that say I can be fired from UT Austin if I join an anti-Israeli group or BDS or this or that, or say the wrong thing about Israel.
I think I'm getting some feedback here, but I think too, though, that like this conflict between Israel and Palestinians. This is the first time that we've had social media widespread on this scale that has really gotten invested in all this. And I think that it's just more of a hot button issue now for lots of people, because lots of people are riled up about it. And there's been a lot more media coverage and much more direct. It's on people's phones. And so, yes, I think that there's definitely a lot more attention on some of this stuff, and that's feeding into legislation like that factors that did not exist nearly as much years or decades ago. But to me, it's just to me, it makes sense that we're in a cycle right now where people are really focused on this thing that has really exploded on social media as a big concern, and people are seeing children in Gaza, with their heads torn off, by bombs and stuff. I get why people are upset and focused on it, but I don't know that this outrage is just because there's this Jewish cabal pushing buttons.
No, nobody said cabal except for you.
A Jewish lobby, then we should say.
Yes,
Jewish
lobby. And the reason you see the pushback is because of social media. And back in the day, when things would happen, or they would do their purges over there in Lebanon and Gaza. This isn't the first time they've wiped. They call it mowing the grass over there, and it's a policy of the Israeli government. This is just the first time that it's been beamed worldwide, and so they're trying to cram that back into the box there. And if it wasn't for Twitter, quite honestly, and Rumble, and a couple other places that might fold, by the way, that could easily fold one of these days and just say, fuck it, we're out, and just go back to the old ways. Honestly, I hate to be blackpilled. That may very well happen. But they used to have what's called gatekeepers in the media, and who got to speak on TV and what got shown in newspapers and this and that. And, for monetary reasons, they opened up internet 2.0, 3.0, all that stuff. And then they kind of let their own cat out of the bag, basically, and now they're desperately trying to put it back in my opinion.
Well, social media has definitely changed the landscape of a lot of these conversations. All right, I've got to go.
Salute.
We've gone longer than I thought. And
yeah, we did. We went a long ways, and I thought it was a fun conversation. I could have just came. I told everybody all day I was just going to come and yell at you and call you all these names, but you were respectful to me, and so I'm respectful to you. Now, you weren't respectful when you said I was on heroin the other night, but I let that go. And
I saw how you let it go.
yeah, you can tell I let it go. But I wish you the best. And I joked about you, having a PhD and being a waitress and all this stuff. But actually, that sucks. And so, I wish you the best. I'm not even making fun of you. I'm saying that I'm just being real. That sucks. Like, what the fuck? So
it's my choice, dude. No, that of all things, you shouldn't feel sorry for me about.
No, I do actually. It's not by choice. You damn sure would be in academia. Come on now, don't. Is it really by choice?
No, I mean, it's seriously. I'm not bullshitting you. Like I started this YouTube thing my last year. I didn't think it was going to be my last year in academia, but I started it my last year, and it was just going to be a hobby. And then it kind of got to a point where I was already feeling like, if I'm going to give this my all, I can't really have like an academic job and whatever. And so I could be teaching at something comparable to what I was doing, but I decided, and I was tired of it. Look, I'll tell you something that sounds bad, but I thought teaching was fucking boring. And maybe that means I wasn't a good teacher, but I thought it was boring. So frankly, to me,
this is better. And I can understand that. Do you make a full-time living off YouTube?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's why you do have the other job.
Yeah.
This is my full-time job. So maybe one day I'll get on my level, and you can do it full-time as well. But I did see
I can only aspire to that.
you can only aspire to the Ralph Mail level, but don't do heroin. I will say that. But it's been a fun time, Colonel Kurtz. I'll say that's kind of weird to call you Colonel Kurtz. I'll say Kristen because that's your actual name, and it's already out there. I'm not doxing you, by the way.
Yeah, it's fine.
So,
you can say that, yeah. But I will say the one thing that pissed me off about some of your viewers who migrated over to my stream to comment on it was that they said this was a has-been movie, Apocalypse Now, and fuck you all for that. Best movie ever made.
well,
anyway.
The Godfather 2 is the greatest movie ever made, but Apocalypse Now, same director, so I'll let it go. But yeah, I also know you have a little film studies background as well, and I'm a big cinephile, not pedophile, by the way. So yes, I do consider myself a cinephile and a student of great film as well. But slight disagreement there on the also Network. There's so many great movies in the 70s. Godfather 1, Rocky. I mean, great decade for our tours, I guess you could say. But we won't see that again. Just more Cape shit. But anyway, salute to you for coming into the Lion's Den. And, I tried to treat you fairly. Took a couple little jabs here or there. But I thought it was pretty productive conversation.
You were far more civil than I could have imagined. So, all right,
thank
everybody.
you.
I will see y'all later. And yeah, I'll be going over to my channel now to do a little live stream and debrief. So I will see y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There button.
Thank you for watching this clip by Colonel J. This is the King of Bull here. Remember to like and subscribe. Juice!